Thanks for joining us. This is episode 14 of VIP Boxing's Bell to Bell podcast. You can watch us on VIP YouTube or Spotify, where you can download, listen on audio if you are going out to work at the moment. And if you're sitting at home on furlough, it's a great way to spend 25 minutes. I'm Steve Lillis. With me this week, my co-host, as always, top journalist John Evans. Our very special guest this week, one of the world's leading promoters, a man who is a citizen of the world. I think he's lived on the African continent, London, Hamburg, perhaps Austria. He'll tell me some more. Kalle Sauerland, how are you, Kalle?
How are you, gents? I'm delighted and honoured to be on the show today, not only with you two, but on this amazing concept. I'm very, very excited to go pillar to post with you on 6 hot topics. I'm raring to go. So, yes, I can't wait.
I tell you what I've got to ask you, and John might have something to ask you in a minute. You've been around in boxing. We were talking before we recorded when you was a little boy having dinner in Highgate with John McGarvey and these guys. Boxing is a big village. You've known that. Your dad would have told you that as a kid. There's no secrets, but nobody saw you swooping for Chris Eubank. How did you keep that quiet?
Well, you know, I learned at an early age in boxing, when you're onto something good, you just don't talk. You don't even tell the dog. So we were on that for a few months. You know, we've always had a good relationship, and the time was right. And you know, we're delighted. We're psyched up and souped up to go for a big 2021. You know, so yeah, I think you just learn in boxing as less information is the best way, you know. So that's all I can say on it.
When are we going to see him perhaps in action? Because I think you might need a crowd for this sort of fight.
No. We got a game plan. We got a game plan that is COVID proof, and you'll see him out in a couple of months. You know, we're not going to hold back. I want him fighting 3 times this year, and that's big fights as well. You know,
I was going to say, we were talking about Eubank Jr. last week, and the matchups at middleweight, every single one of them is a crowd pleaser for Eubank's style, isn't it? Is he just going straight in the mix, or are you gonna give him a fight to break him back in, or are you just throwing him straight in?
I think in an ideal world, you give him a fight to break him in.
Yeah.
But we also know it's tough times at the moment to get fights, to get action. So you know, we're gonna have to look a little bit and be creative. You know, I think we set our stalls high with what we want, but that's what we want to do. We've said we want Golovkin this year. We've talked about Kell Brook potentially. We've talked about there's Liam Williams out there. There's Murata. You know, there's some great fights to make. And I think whatever you think of Eubank Jr., I know he's Marmite for some, but you know, he draws, and it's all about talking points in our sport. It's all about, you know, it's not just the lovers, it's the haters as well. You've got to take them with, you know, and that's fine. That's fine. And that's something that we think that captures the attention, and that's why he's done some great numbers in the past, and he's going to do some good numbers this year from a business point of view. But from a sports point of view, he needs to get in the ring. You know, that's key. That's key.
Right. Well, anyone listening to Bell for the first time, 6 topics, as Kalle introduced that earlier on, 6 hot topics, 3-minute rounds each. And at the end of 3 minutes, what happens, John?
You get the bell.
I did warn you, Kalle. Johnny's serious with a bell. Imagine that lunatic you promote, Bramer, looking at you the wrong way, as I said to you on a night out. That is John when that bell rings. He might let you go over the top on the final round. If he's in a good mood, he'll either say you end or you can continue round 6. If it's a draw everywhere, you can fight after the bell. Round 1, John, you're going to kick us off as usual.
I am. Let's just get the timer going. Right, let's talk about the imagination that some promoters have shown over the lockdown period. I just wonder if a few have just missed a little bit of a trick. You know, when we first came through, we had the shows at Matchroom Fight Camp, and it was a little bit of a novelty with the TV studio settings, and we weren't quite sure how fighters would respond to it. I think the fighters actually deserve a little bit of credit because we've seen some much more high-profile fights than I thought. But I do just wonder if the novelty's worn off. We're now into the same routine that we were in before lockdown. We get prospects against journeymen. We might get a domestic 10-rounder, then we might get fringe world title and then possibly a world title fight at the end. I just wonder if a little bit more imagination might have brought boxing more to a captive audience. You know, maybe we could have had prospects not being shown live on the cards. Maybe show them pre-recorded and put them out midweek with a little featurette to try and build some characters. If people have got to be locked in a house, why not lock them in together and get a contender type series going? Let's try and build some names. So I'm just wondering if Kalle, with the reputation German shows have got for being theatrical events, have you tried to think of any unique ideas?
John, I've only got a couple of minutes here, so I'm going to have to get straight going. Get your point, but we've got to look at the way it's delivered. And in boxing, the reason boxing has even survived at some way, shape or form, and actually it's put on some pretty big fights in 2020, is because boxing also has a media revenue. So boxing has 3 revenue streams: media rights, i.e. TV, blah, 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 sponsorship, gate, right? The gate was gone 2020. So you were relying purely on the media. So you are dealing with companies that have their own issues, yeah? And, you know, obviously media houses also going through complete turmoil last year, and most people were. So it was a very difficult time to get anything out of it. It was very slow moving. I can tell you this from behind the scenes with media companies, very slow moving. So to try and do something out of the box was very difficult. We floated quite a few little concepts around, you know, different ideas of a way boxing is normally done, but very unreceptive on the media side of things because they were trying to work out themselves where they were going. In terms of the boxing, I've got to say, a lot of fights did end up getting made last year. So I think the promoters have performed. I don't think anyone made much money last year. And, you know, promoters, we like to also try and earn as well at the same time. That didn't happen last year. I think everyone stuck together. The promoters realised there's no money in the year. Fighters realised they took pay cuts. They all got out. Most of them got out. And the ones who didn't were happy to wait for this year. So I understand where you're coming from. But I can tell you one thing. I did the first fight between the number 1, 2 in the division in the WBSS final. The work to get those people flown into the country around the whole COVID circumstances, different sides of the pond, so difficult. It took us ages to make. We put all the bells and whistles on it. Time up. I think I got my point over though.
You did. My first one, again, I think John will be quiet and Kalle have a say here, is Josh Warrington. I feel he's a bit of a victim here, not getting his unification against Kanzu. And first they were meant to fight December the 5, and then, you know, for some reason, Eddie couldn't get that together, you know, which happens. As Kalle said, it's been hard for promoters working. I think they've done very well, all of them, every single one of you.
Every single one.
But they couldn't get it away. And then it's going to happen. The first excuse, Leo Santa Cruz wouldn't relinquish his WBA featherweight after he lost to Gervonta Davis, which he's entitled to after being told he would. Kanzu had signed a contract with the super title as well as the IBF. Now we're getting told he wants more money behind closed doors. I just feel more could have been done to help Josh here, because I don't think with Leo Santa Cruz that Al Heyman's going to do Eddie any favours, in the sense he's a rival in America now. You know, he's got Showtime and Fox on TV. Eddie's got his Japanese streaming company, The Zone, which he's doing really well with. And I wonder, you know, our golden boy really going to try and push Zoo to come with, you know, without no crowds or anything, if they might have something else for him, given that Canelo's now fighting on Eddie's show. And I wonder if, you know, Josh has been a victim maybe of Eddie's sort of, you know, not Eddie's fault at all. It's other people stopping it. Is he a victim of Eddie's wars in America? Now he's got Mauricio Lara. It seems from looking at Kid Galahad's Twitter as the IBF mandatory, he's kicking up a fuss. I just wonder what you think, Kalle. Am I being too hard on the promoter?
I think we've got to look at it this way. I have to take the promoters out of the equation on this. We have to look. We always argue about these belts, about super champ, this champ. Now, this is an IBF situation. I've been in hundreds of these, especially back in the Klitschko days. I remember with mandatories and waiting on the mandatories and this special exceptional. The thing is, the IBF doesn't use a super championship. So if you follow the rules of boxing, the idea of rankings and mandatories is that you get your shot once a year against the champion. Old school rule. Obviously, it's been diluted through, they made a super champion, they made interim champion, whatever. The IBF doesn't do that. It sticks to the original rule of once a year. Actually, I think it's even 9 months for the IBF. There is a mandatory. The champion can call for a special exception, pays a fee, can normally do one defense on top in that cycle. If we go away from that, though, we've got to go into a system and we're going to allow that to be broken, which I'm not a fan of, because I think it's good. I know it doesn't work at the moment for Josh, and I think the whole Sansu.
Fine, Kalle. The time. Your first topic.
I didn't have enough time on that one. That one was unfair, man. I was just getting to the point, you know.
Go on, Kalle. Your first topic.
We'll go back to it at the end if you've been in.
We'll go back at the end because I understand where you're coming from. You've got both sides. So, right, okay. We have got punching celebs. Right, is one of my chosen topics. YouTubers and celebrities. I'll just give you quickly because I realise these 3 minutes go fast. I am in favour of letting YouTubers have fights with each other, with proper camps and getting a license and getting themselves licensed. I see no difference to a young guy picking up a pair of gloves just because he's been a YouTuber or whatever he's doing, football or whatever. You can go and do that. Nothing should stop a human being from trying to become a professional boxer. A YouTuber is no different to a kid coming off the street and wanting to fight, learning to fight. You know, we've got the heavyweight champion of the world at the moment. He picked up his gloves very late in his career. The one Tyson was born with a set of gloves, but Joshua took it up late. No reason to stop him. But stop, please, the lunacy of mismatch, which is so obviously mismatching. It's not even mismatching. It's ridiculous, you know, to hear a YouTuber calling out one of the greatest fighters of all time is bananas. It's not sellable. It's, for me, it's an insult on our intelligence. But I'm in favor of bringing YouTubers in terms of bringing young audiences looking at the sport of boxing. When I say young, I'm talking very young, and that's a chance for boxing. If they want to do it, they've got to do it the right way and not take powder puff hunting. They've got to do a proper way to get licensed and have a fight. If they want to have a fight, I'm all good for it with it. That's my sense. Over to you, gents.
We see a lot of people saying YouTubers are using boxing to push the profile. I just wonder when the first time one of these matches does get made and the boxer decides to use the YouTuber to build his profile and really does a serious number on him. Can you imagine the hits that it'd get if Floyd decided to really put instead of playing the game, he decided to make him a highlight reel?
Could kill him. Could absolutely kill him. But those matches must not be licensed. That's the difference. That's man on man, and it's fair.
The game.
Yeah, but I've had world title fights turned down because people have said it shouldn't be licensed. You know, mismatches. But this is the same thing. I mean, you know, to say it's like me saying I'm going to go play. You know, I can play a bit of tennis. I'm going to have a tennis match with Roger Federer. But the difference is you can get seriously injured on this.
Yeah. Did anyone see the sort of semi-celeb match the other night when Stephen Wall boxed the world's strongest man?
I did. But we can't talk about it, Steve, because that's the time.
I didn't see that one. Well,
let's go about...
eyeballs are good. That's how I'd say it. Eyeballs are good, but in the right way.
They are. Let's my shoulders sagged a little bit this week when I saw Deontay Wilder's being linked with Charles Martin. And I think if American boxers are going to get back into being right at the top of the food chain at heavyweight, we can't be having fights like that. You've got three world-class heavyweights in America. You've got Wilder, Hunter, and Andy Ruiz. At the moment, those three guys are running the risk of just being sidelined for a long time while we get Usyk, Joshua, Fury, White, Povetkin, while they dominate the division for a while. I think there's one fight that can bring American heavyweights back into being real players, and I think it's for two losers. I think we've got to get Wilder against Andy Ruiz. I think it brings attention to American heavyweight boxing. I think it's an exciting fight.
John, I've got to jump in. I've only got 3 minutes. I've got to get my point over here. I'm with you. I understand, but I understand from a career point of view. Wilder was very clever not to take that Fury fight now. He took an absolute beating. He needs exactly that type of fight, a Martin fight now, to get himself back. By the way, I'm following the Martin situation because I've got Hrgovic at number 4. So Martin is number 1. Yeah. So if you look at it on paper, it's a perfect sort of comeback. I wouldn't say tune-up fight; it's a bit disrespectful, but it's a perfect fight for Wilder to get back into the mix.
Buy anything from it?
I would personally. I think we all know who wins the fight. I'd be very surprised if it wasn't. But at the end of the day, I mean, Martin was, he's number 1 in the official world rankings. Whether we agree with that or not, that's what his position is. I understand why they're doing it. I think same promoter, but Deontay needs a couple of fights, that confidence for someone who's unbeaten and has that KO record over so many years and gets manhandled and completely. We've seen the psychological reaction on these things from him. You've got to worry about the man with some of the things he's saying. So to build him up again, to put him in with a Ruiz, I think is a step too far. You need a fight in between.
Do you think Deontay's got another run of 2 years in him, or is it just a case
if he does, he is crashed. Look at those clips of him talking at the moment. I mean, that is, forget lockdown. We're all going a bit mad, but I mean, that's on the verge of insanity. One of them was like a cult calling. It was. I was watching. I'm thinking, it's just like some satanic message or something. It was insanity, and that for me, he needs a couple of fights, get back in the groove, and then he gets attack again. Great champion over quite a few years, massive puncher. I'm not buying the biggest puncher ever in boxing or whatever. That's rubbish.
He got his point across.
Good. Go on, Steve.
Art of matchmaking. I think we're in an era, you particularly see it on small hall shows in England. I don't know what sort of smaller shows there are in Germany and, Scandinavia, Kalle. But, we see a lot of this box rec matchmaking. Someone just goes to the bottom of box rec, gets someone in, they know a kid who sells a few tickets can win.
Nothing like a good matchmaker, Steve. Nothing. Do you remember before box rec, before the internet, John, you were too young for this. There was something called Pugilato. Do you remember Pugilato? Was the boxing Bible. As a kid, I would wait. It always came out in January, I think. I would wait to see who was on the cover of Pugilato. Pugilato was basically box rec in a book. It was an Italian who was doing it.
Fight Facts, Ralph Citro's Fight Facts I used to get. And when I first started on the Daily Sport, you'd subscribe to that because you go to a press conference, your dad and Mickey Duff would call, and Mickey Duff would say, "This guy's never been knocked out," and there's about 5 knockout losses.
And the thing was, they only updated them exactly so often. So you relied on these matchmakers. I mean, Don Majeski is one of the best matchmakers in the state. Listen, if you sit with Don, he has a book, a black book. Actually, I've got one here. It looks exactly like that. Right? Black book like this, but he's got about 4 of them. All in the pocket, and he has got good left hand, he's got every little bit of thing. So if you want to call someone up, you call your matchmaker up, you need a good matchmaker. Yeah. And that is, I can tell you, we've built so many champions from bottom up throughout our history in promotions. And without a matchmaker, because we think we know it all as a promoter, you do not, my friends. You've got to be doing your time, these guys have been doing it from actually physically flying all over the place for no reason on their own money to go and watch boxing, not because just they're boxing nerds, but because that's the source of information. That was where the talent got. Now it's, go box rec. The box rec rankings, I can't make head or tail of them. You can win a fight and go down. It's bizarre. It's a great service, by the way. I use it a hell of a lot to check up on fighters. I don't look at the rankings much because I don't make much of them. But you can, obviously, for the records, it's great. You can say, we lost to this one. You can get a gauge, but it won't tell you what type of a fight you're going to play. And if you're building up a fighter, you don't just want to know if he's going to win. You want to know before he fights for a world title, he's got to fight someone who's tall, short, skinny, fat, a southpaw, dirty fighter, technician, puncher. You want him to have been in every situation so that when that call comes for a world title, boom, he's ready. And not, he's never fought a southpaw before. Oh, that's not good. You need to match your, That's your investment.
I
Sorry,
didn't
end up.
start my point about Conor Benn. I'm going to have Conor Benn next week as a topic, John.
Go on, Kalle. Finish it off, Kalle. Your last one.
Okay. One that's close to my heart. I work with him for a lot. You can't start the 3 minutes. Is it started already? Have we started? Right.
We get a little bit of time. It's the last round.
Equal pay, women. Right. It's not just equal pay, equal platform in the sport. Right. My argumentation is the women need 3-minute rounds. That's more or less the point I'm trying to bring over here today. They need it. They deserve it. They train for it. They train harder than men. But for this sport, female boxing, to be on the same level as the men, it has to be 3-minute rounds. It's a media sport, like I said before. You rely on the media money. You got 2-minute rounds. It simply isn't as good as the 3-minute round. Everyone knows that. You need, and look, by the way, the females, once again, they are as skilled and as trained, more dedicated than the men, a lot of them, because a lot of them at the moment are still having to work at 9 to 5 and then go boxing and be a world champion all at the same time. So my point, equal pay, but we need to get to equal pay via making that media product as sexy as the men's product, and that is simple. 3-minute rounds. Bring it on.
John, John Kalle, do you think, Eddie did that great show with the girls, the women boxers that headline, and it got great figures because Sky put it on all its various platforms. It may have even gone on a free-to-air channel. I'm not sure. You've got great experience of staging women's boxing well before it got popular over here with Scandinavia and in Germany. Do you think it's going to work over here, them sort of shows that Eddie had? That show that Eddie, with predominantly women at the box office for ticket sales?
It will, only on the 3-minute round basis, because the sport is a totally different one on a 3-minute round basis. You need the characters. The women seem to have an abundance of cool characters to promote, authentic characters. I can tell you, Regina Halmich in Germany in the late 90s, 2000s, she did bigger gates, viewing numbers, 8, 9, 10 million, was a multi-million-dollar star and did everything on the basis of her character, the way, but you've got to be able to sell them. And in this country, especially in the UK in particular, no one is interested in those 2-minute rounds. It's far too short. If
you look at UFC just integrated the women in with the same rounds, same rules, 5-round championship fights, and now you can get women headline big pay-per-view events and no one bats an eyelid.
John, go in a gym, watch them train. I've seen them spar. They're complete. Some of them are total beasts, animals. They make us men look like fairies.
Oh yeah, believe I've seen it with my own eyes, Kalle, and we're getting girls coming through. I think we're getting girls like Ellie Scottney coming. They're going to capture people's imagination. We've been waiting for the female Ricky Hatton to come through, the crowd get behind. That could be Scottney. We're waiting for a female knockout artist. 3-minute rounds would only help that. And as soon as these different characters and different skill sets start coming, all of a sudden you've got a product that's just as good as the men's.
Yeah, and they want it. They want it. The women want it. It's like that should be protests on the street for this.
I think also
after lockdown, of course.
But I agree with you on the 3 minutes round, and I know it's something you might have discussed this, Kalle, with Bunsey. He's big on the 3-minute rounds, but I think we need more of them boxing, because we need these rivalries where they're going to have series of fights. Like Katie Taylor's, I apologise, the Belgian girl she's met a couple of times. We need these rivalries to capture public imagination. We're seeing far too many of them turning over, and we're getting girls imported. Okay, we'll go back to what we were saying about BoxRec matchmaking, who are inept.
Yeah, but Steve, the thing is, the talent, when we started with female boxing in the 90s, the talent was shit. You had a few really good ones, but you had to get an opponent was impossible. You had to do rematches with people they knocked out in 2 rounds. It was ridiculous. The talent is already deep now. We're looking at World Boxing Super Series potentially at female, because it's a deep talent pool. But let them get that 3-minute, let this sport grow a couple of years with the 3-minute rounds, and you're going to get women in gyms. It's a no-brainer, because they need more time on air to showcase the talent. Those 3-minute rounds, there is a huge difference in boxing between a 2-minute round and a 3-minute round. End of. Different fight to watch. Different fight to watch. We all know there's a big difference between a 10-rounder and a 12-rounder. Anyone who knows anything about boxing knows that. But this is 2 to 3 minute rounds. It takes me half a minute to start concentrating on a round sometimes to watch, So it's over. It's like it flies by, and it robs these ladies, girls and ladies, of what they put in at the gym. And they won't get the big paydays. They won't get those big paydays. Katie Taylor is a standout. Regina Halmish was a standout. Cecilia Brækhus is a standout. But that's 3 girls in 25 years. Yeah, there should be loads of these, loads of them. And the reason it's not is because they haven't got a media package to sell. They don't have the rounds, and it won't be as interesting until they change it.
We've gone way over 3 minutes, but just to finish
That's my rant. That's my rant. Allow me the rant. Thank you, John. Thank you, John.
Can you imagine how big a star Anne Wolf would have been these days with that knockout power? Imagine if she was
the pay-per-view one. 6'3".
Oh, the character as well. The character. We can all talk about. You got to talk about the characters. It's all good being, a big puncher of this, but you need the character. She was a character. We're talking about her now. She's a character. I remember Regina Halmish, sorry to go back, but she for me is still, despite Katie's achievement, still the all-time greatest female boxer, Regina Halmish, in terms of a successful promotion. She's in Germany a superstar. 9 million viewers. That's insanity. So, anyways, I think we made our point on the women. I think we need to change that. That's got to be done.
Well, Kalle, you've been a star. To tell you what, Kalle, before you go,
and Steve, let me just finish that thing. I just want to finish Josh Warrington, because that one we didn't quite finish. We're allowed to do this now. You've got to look at it like this. We can all complain about these, I called them holding belts, regular championships. We can complain about them, but we're not going to get both scenarios. So if you're the number one, if I want the number one guy and I want in with Warrington and I'm in the mandatory, I will push. I don't care, right, what situation's going on. That's not my job. My job is to look after my guy, right? And, if the IBF, they stripped Tyson on the Monday after ending the Klitschko era. That's some set of balls. So we can either say, oh, well, he should be the unification. Yeah. So what? So we're going to bend the rules then, aren't we? We got to bend the rules, But then doesn't that take us back to, oh, well, why don't we just make him interim? We're so easy in boxing. We're so easy to, but we really want that fight. So yeah, give him that to keep him happy, And that's all this situation is. So we can blame the federations all day long, creating this belt, more sanctioning fees. Yeah, of course, it's a business. It's a business, people. But guess what? We're the demand, and I'm not talking as a promoter now, I'm talking as a fan, yeah? And if you ask me, the cycle around belts is very simple. The fans want to see them. They want to see it. The unit, Look, I was reading a thing about Fury Joshua. That fight is going to take about $10 million to make before they paid the boxers, to pay the sanctioning bodies, and to pay to pay Wilder and Usyk and whatever. So that is the demand of, to call it, the unification. They'll probably be unified for about an hour, yeah, because the move will be Usyk fights Joyce for the number one or whatever it is, or interim, and then the second that fight's over, they'll be asked to fight. They'll say, no, we're not going to do it. We're doing the second fight, relinquish the belt, and then the second fight will be for 3 belts. It's all bananas, but that's what it is, and that's the reason you get in these situations like Warrington is now.
Kalle, you made your points brilliantly. You were one guest it was worth ignoring John's bell for there. John's going to be lecturing me for a week now. You don't have to deal with him every other day. You don't have to deal with him. You chat and that's it. He's laughing, but he's really angry. Well, he's never angry with this. But Kalle, you've been a great guest. Can we get you back on in a couple of months again?
Absolutely. Love to.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Kalle. We'll see everyone next week, John. And I think
thank you very much, lads.
For next week.
Thanks, gents.
Thank you.
For all boxing info, news, and latest interviews, amateur and pro across the north, click and subscribe. VIP Boxing Promotions. Also, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.